Good morning and welcome. I'm Karen Cross, Executive Director for the Greater Kingston Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank you for participating in our community conversation about mental health this morning. As always, we greatly appreciate the support from our title sponsor, Bell Let's Talk, represented today by Sandy McDonald. I'd also like to thank our speaker today, Dr. Ayonrinde, for joining us today. And now I'll turn it over to Jessica to say a few words.
Thank you, Karen. So good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Colvin, and I am the Manager of Business Development and Member Services, and I'll also be your moderator today. Kindly note that this session is being recorded and will be available for viewing on our YouTube channel later this afternoon. With the challenges we've all faced over the last 2 years, taking every action to drive progress in mental health in our communities is of critical importance. This year's nationwide Bell Let's Talk Day multimedia campaign highlights the actions we can all take to drive mental health forward and create positive change. I'm going to begin by sharing a video from Mary Beacon, Chair of Bell Let's Talk and our title sponsor for today's event.
Hello, I'm Mary Deacon, Chair of Bell Let's Talk. January 26th marks the 12th anniversary of Bell Let's Talk Day and provides a timely opportunity to build on increased awareness around mental health and to help inspire all of us to keep playing an active role in moving mental health forward in Canada as a priority issue. For this year's campaign, we are continuing to focus on action, encouraging all of us to keep talking, keep listening, and keep being there for one another. Together, we can continue to drive positive change. Together, we can remind people they are not alone and that recovery is possible. Please join me on Bell Let's Talk Day, January 26th, where for every applicable call, text, and social media interaction, Bell donates more to Canadian mental health. Together, we can create a Canada where everyone can get the mental health support they need and move forward with their lives to achieve their full potential.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mary. And now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our keynote. Dr. Ayonrinde is an associate professor of psychiatry at Queen's University and consultant psychiatrist with Providence Care and Kingston Health Science Centre. He is also the clinical director, community mental health at Providence Care. His clinical work is primarily community-based with an assertive community treatment team. He holds an executive MBA with an interest in organizational behavior, teams, and mental health in the workplace. He is also a mental health advocate actively involved in encouraging corporate social responsibility, health equity, and stigma reduction initiatives. Somehow, he still manages to find time to be on the board of a number of non-for-profit organizations, including a mental health social enterprise venture. Alongside academic, education, and advocacy awards, he is the recipient of the Freedom of the City of London, England. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ayonrinde.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for the great opportunity to be a guest today on Bell Let's Talk. I'll be sharing slides, and there we go. Can you see my slides? Cover slide? Great. Well, the theme for Bell Let's Talk presentation today is going to be No Health Without Mental Health in YGK in Kingston. And my name is Deji Ayonrinde. Many people call me Deji for short as well. I'd like to start with acknowledging that we are on land with great history, with a history of different people, history of pain, memories, and the Truth and Reconciliation events and more recent historical events to do with children and unmarked graves and the processes we're going through. A reminder that while we deal with our current mental health issues, there are generations of others who are also having to deal with generations of pain, disadvantage, marginalization. As community, we're interwoven in many ways. And the great thing about being in a community, whether it's community mental health services, or you go to school here, or go to a bank, is we are codependent. And that's really important because it means to thrive and do well, we need each person and each organization to do well. And I mean, I'm not a great numbers guy, but maybe just for a start, no one enjoys 100% mental health all the time. And if we start at that as a baseline, we have our mental health is 100% minus a factor of X, whether it's 5%, 80%, 90%, but no one enjoys 100% mental health or mental wellness all the time. And that's really important to set as a platform as we reflect on experiences of mental disorders, mental distress, stigma, and other challenges. And the point here is we're really interconnected. And anyone who lives in Kingston, which is a super connected city, when I arrived in Kingston, someone mentioned to me, oh, by the way, everyone here is one person or two people removed from another. And my, oh my, that's proven right. So it's a very, very interconnected city. And I jokingly say to people, you mess up in Kingston, just leave town. You know, there's nowhere to hide. But there's something about this interconnected shape that also explains a pandemic. It means also, I mean, people are probably now averse to a shape of something round with red dots on it. But if we look at COVID and the pandemic, the interconnectedness of disease infection, the interconnectedness of the burden of mental health difficulties and challenges. When a school closes, it can affect a chief exec. When a child is going through difficulties, it can affect a parent and so on. So it's a very interconnected city. And again, I make a point here, no health without mental health. Now let's talk or reflect on stigma a bit. And stigma and stereotyping can come very naturally to us. We don't really have to try that hard. So here we are, you've got different colors there, but I bet your brains are trying to make the red written in red, right? And the green written in green and blue written in blue. And it's the thing our brains do. Our brains just like to put things in patterns and ways we understand. So it's not that we don't form stereotypes, we all stereotype, but what do we do when those stereotypes are challenged? Is red less red because it's written in green? And these are assumptions we may make about people based on their sexuality, their gender, the sex, their race, the way they speak, and so on. It's all too quick we make these assumptions, and these are assumptions that can affect our day-to-day interactions, and whether or how well we thrive or flourish or not in our communities. I'm just stealing a quote from myself, and I thought, why not? And it was a quote from another presentation, but many members of our community are marginalized by virtue of their health status, poverty, their socio-demographic characteristics, and this may manifest through stigma associated with homelessness, mental illness, or observable features. And I'd argue within the margins of these people who may be marginalized are equity-deserving individuals who are isolated, lonely, disconnected, and silent. And what are we doing as a community to support one another, each other in these situations? By mental health, I'm going to be covering a number of things, and I'll make reference to mental disorders, but we all have mental health, whether it's positive or negative, whether it's thriving or not, we have a form of mental health, just like we all have physical health. And some of those that many of us are probably more exposed will be things to do around anxiety, depression, whether or not we're misusing alcohol or problematic alcohol use, substance misuse, but also other disorders like ADHD and other more what we call serious or severe mental illnesses like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and so on. And hopefully in the Q&A, I'll welcome you to ask me any question you'd like about mental disorders, their definitions, understanding, core bits of treatment or care involved in them as well. Now, if you're superhuman, you probably never go through any form of stress, never experience fatigue, irritability, anger, attention concentration impairments, memory or sleep difficulties. But many of us are going through these. 2 years and a bit of a pandemic does take a toll. Just a little bit, it just chips away, chips away, chips away. And many of us are probably feeling rather jaded and tired. Many of us have probably found ourselves grumpy and irritable or angry in situations. Someone saying, Mom, but all I said was good morning. Why did you shout at me? And the parent realized, oops, maybe I'm feeling a bit stressed. Many of us may be noticing that our memory or cognitive function isn't just as sharp as it used to be. You're looking at Sudoku, trying to listen or read something, and you just don't feel as present. Sleep has probably been impaired for many of us as well. And this, day in, day out, does take a toll on our mental health. So looking at mental health in the workplace, and again, we shouldn't assume everyone in the workplace is the boss. Some people own the business. Some people are employers, some people are employees. So we do come at this from different perspectives. For the owners, what are the stressors? Are they watching the figures just go down, down, down as the company begins to drown? Many businesses have collapsed over the last 2 years. The employer, what's it like with your staff? Are you able to retain staff or not? The employee, job security. And the moral distress, the real difficulty when people have had to lay off staff they've worked with for years, people they've become really fond of and cared for each other, one another, people who've worked hard to build in the industry or the company. And the challenge is also working remotely. When home is work and work is home, now that's a completely different world to be in. And we're going through a lot of that. How many of us have been in Zoom meetings and a child has run by or Zoom crashed that meeting, or a partner has shut the door loud or not, and you try and keep everything hush. Good old Zoom and the blur effect and so on. But the challenges of working remotely, which favors some more than others. Not everyone has the sort of space they can use for that. Do you have the technology to use for working remotely as well? And mental health at home, because no matter how many hours you spend at work, you're going to go home someday if home isn't work. And what does this mean in an environment where you've got the children? How are the children handling all this difficulty? Schools are open, schools are closed. Can I go out? No. You mask? No. You don't mask? Yes. Are we getting vaccinated or not? And day-to-day life of this, the wear and tear, but Dad, I'd like to play with my friends. No, I'm sorry, you can't. Why? And for many young people, how many years, if you're 8 years old, 25% of your life or more has gone in pandemic. Some babies have been born that have just never seen life without. And how does the parent bond with their child and form attachments through this sort of period? For the parents, how do we parent through this period and the toll on our emotional well-being and wellness? And for the grandparents as well, many grandparents have gone through just the pain of not being able to see their grandkids. The magic that comes from grandkids that so many people talk about, and people just not being able to have those special moments. And relationships. love you till death do us part, till you're cooped together, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, for 2 years or more. And then a bit of friction. And these months and the pandemic period has taken a toll on many relationships. People have learned things about others. People have started feeling a bit more grumpy. There's the good old, loosely I'll refer to as the toilet seat test. What are those little drops on the toilet seat and so on? Things that don't matter till they matter, and just the wear and tear. And some relationships have gone through a lot of strain through this period, linked with stress and so many other challenges. And what's this toll on our emotional and mental health? Work-life balance. I mean, cliche, we talk about it all the time, but how do we manage our work-life imbalance at the moment? And that's tough. It's not easy going through this and trying to juggle all of this, particularly with all the other moving parts going on in our lives and the impact on our mental wellness. So many people are dealing with loss they struggle to talk about. Death of loved ones, funerals you weren't able to attend, death through COVID, loss of employment, loss of income and financial status, loss of socialization, just spending time with friends and loved ones, loss of vacation, grief that's unresolved, just lingering there, and physical health as well, changes. I think there's a good reason for us to introduce a new measure known as the CKG, not EKG, but the CKG, which will be your sort of COVID kilograms. And how many COVID kilograms have you put on? And beginning to wonder, goodness, will I ever be able to get into that dress again, into that shirt again? Will I ever knot a tie again? And the consequence with other health things like diabetes, risks of cancer and so on. So many of us are dealing with loss as well. And it's ongoing. Alpha, beta, delta, Omicron, and on and on and on. And when's this going to end? The human mind doesn't like uncertainty because uncertainty is fertile ground for anxiety. And what's this doing to us when we're in a perpetual state of unknown? You listen to the radio and it's exhausting. TV, it's exhausting. We're not going to give this creature too much credit today, but we can't ignore it. And COVID comes with its own direct threats. Many of us here may have been infected with COVID. Some are recovering. Some are dodging the virus, but it's not a game. The unknowns that come with COVID anxiety, the fatigue, information overload. We thought we knew, then we didn't know, then we're learning more. Whether we're getting vaccinated or not, and what does vaccination status mean to us? Double, triple, booster, super booster, do we agree in our households or not? Does COVID cause conflict within our homes and families? How do we explain COVID to young ones? How do you explain death to your 3-year-old? And these are things that linger on in our minds. This is an old graphic from the early bit of the pandemic, but it's beginning to ring true. And the ultimate wave of COVID, when it's well long gone, is the sort of mental health toll, the psychological effects and how it's weighed. And for those of us who work in mental health services, there's been no respite at all. The emotional and mental health toll of the last 2 years is huge. Even some of the most tenacious and resilient are getting to breaking points. And I think we should be true to ourselves when we're not coping. This is part of our community. And some people don't have secure accommodation or stable accommodation. Some people have homes, others are homeless. And look at this image. On the left, you've got 2 bicycles. You've got 4 people staying here. You've got the red suitcase, the gas cylinder on top. And this day was -31 wind chill. This was just 2 weeks ago. So in this our interconnected city, good old hashtag YGK, what's housing like? What's unemployment like? How do we attend to poverty? All these indices linked with our mental health, physical and mental health burden, substance misuse, and death. People are dying every day. They may not be your neighbors, they may not be your siblings or family members, but people are dying every day, whether you hear about it or not. And these are members of our communities. So touch a number of industries. Arts and culture, it's not the same. Now, arts and culture, a throbbing heart of Kingston. Anyone new in town here, it heaves. There's always somewhere you can go and do something amazing. And this has such amazing therapeutic benefits, but we're having less of this because of the pandemic. This takes a toll on our mental health, but also this is an industry that's been hit, and many of you who may work in this industry, life's not been the same. Entertainment, that amazing distraction where you can just travel with a movie and get into another world, but this is an industry that's taken a toll as well, a hit. Yet entertainment contributes to our mental wellness. Advertising and media, you need thriving business for people to have things to want to advertise and promote and encourage. And again, this is an industry that keeps us connected and informed, and it's taken a toll on the mental health. Accommodation and travel, we dream of those beaches and all and so on, but when hotels become COVID accommodation or temporary accommodation, when hotels aren't filling and day-to-day life and the booming tourist industry that comes to amazing Kingston, you know, and the Love Kingston symbol, put the I in Kingston, that takes a toll again on an industry and mental wellness. Automotive and marine industry, again, we need to drive and move around, and my oh my, people love their water here. But again, it's taken a toll. It's not the same. Are people buying cars when they're staying home? You can travel with Zoom. Agriculture and forestry. And again, a toll on that. Some of your favorite foods aren't arriving in the stores because the supply chains are disrupted or there's not labor to work on this. Business and professional. Well, you guys know about it a lot more than I do, but these again are industries that are taking a toll, yet they keep us healthy as a community and connected. If anyone had disrespect for computers and telecoms, you try not having Zoom work or not having Wi-Fi work. And Bell, we salute you for your sponsorship, because my oh my, we need this. This is key to our connectedness. And one of the industries that's a first responder or frontline work that we may take for granted, but again, a toll. Construction, equipment, and contractors. When business is thriving and people are building, boom, boom, boom. But what's happening to this industry? What's it like to be laid off when you spent years going to St. Lawrence College, you've perfected your trade, you're beginning to build your networks, and then you're having to shut down or close? Community organizations, and these have been carrying and just keeping us connected. I won't mention names because I'm going to leave some out and I'll get into trouble. But this community donates. And are we at the verge of donor fatigue? Keep donating. Every single bit counts. And thank you, because it really is great for our mental health. Personal service and care, staff shortages, burnouts, compassion fatigue. The PSWs who are just burnt out. We hear daily over news, people are leaving work, they're burnt out. Education, dare I say, for those of you who are parents or in school yourselves, open today, closed tomorrow, no in, out, and so on. And this is really difficult because uncertainty, instability, the domestic pressure cooker does take a toll on our mental health, and if not ours, that of our children. If kids are not sleeping well, they're going through a distress, parents feel something, and that's a toll on mental health as well. and an industry I'm also familiar with. The healthcare sector is dealing with immense burnout. There's compassion fatigue. Some of the most caring, kind, loving professionals are tired. There's moral distress. People are retiring, and the healthcare industry is not in the best of mental health at the moment. Not because people aren't resilient, but they're human. Finance and insurance, again, an industry that underpins so much of business, and the toll that it's going through as well. Legal services, and thanking those in legal services who've advocated for or support people with mental health issues, in championing they're being marginalized in different areas. But again, not the same. You need things to flourish, to do contracts and all the rest. Manufacture, again, reduced demands and supply chains. And what's happening to the mental health in these industries as well? Pets. I'd say on a good day, a cuddle with a dog or a cat can probably outperform some psychiatrists. I'm not doing myself out of a job, but again, we've got pets and vets, and this is an industry that's also going through its own roller coaster. Real estate, are we buying homes? Are we not? Are we downsizing? Can we afford them? And an index also of the difficulties we're going through, and mental health. Kingston loves its food, fine dining and so on, and it's not been easy. Retail, again, you're going in the store, your 2-meter marks on the ground, you go one way, another way, you know, are you cleaning your hands, and just the emotional toll on each of us. Sports and recreation, physical health is great for your mental health till your gym's closed and you don't have enough space at home. And how do you exercise and keep yourself well? What's happening to this industry? Transport. Buses, yes, but many of us have probably forgotten what it's like to be in a plane or a train. And what's happening with our mental health regarding transport and just getting away? What's happening in the industry that's had to suspend staff or services? In a perfect world, we could consider, and I draw you to consider this, having a Kingston Business Mental Health Index. What's the workplace culture like? Do we have an employee wellness program? Is the workplace psychologically safe, where we can just be our authentic selves? And everyone knows, okay, Deji's having a bit of a grumpy day, but he's all right, or who can have a quiet chat. Access to support for emotional and mental health. Protected hours, or do I have to respond to all my emails at 2 a.m. when I've already got insomnia? Do we have staff with lived experience of mental disorder, given that about 1 in 5 of us would have a mental disorder at the moment, and much larger numbers? By the time we die, or about to die, many of us would have lived with a mental disorder, even if it's dementia, well, or cognitive decline. Minimum wages, are people getting enough to live a dignified life and not worry about money every day? And our workplaces, do they have mental health related job security? So yes, I've suffered depression, but I can still be effective. I have an anxiety disorder, but I still have things I can contribute. And are we making reasonable adjustments in the workplace? Corporate social responsibility. A challenge to each of the industries. Do you have a CSR strategy? What is it? What's the link to mental health, and is it relevant to Kingston? And I'd argue many corporate social responsibility strategies can link to mental health. We really can connect to mental health in more ways than we think. Thanks to those who've been able to provide food for people who have been vulnerable, those who provided transport discounts, those who've done all sorts of delivery services, people providing free legal aid and advice, people who've contributed to various supply chains for other people with complex mental health problems. And I would argue, because a community is so interconnected, every bit you do in your corporate social responsibility can enhance our mental health. Sometimes it might be indirect, and as one of our employee cleaning service people with lived experience said to me when he had my office super sprayed and cleaned over and over during COVID, well, ongoing COVID, I'm doing this so to keep you safe and healthy, doctor. I can't see patients, but if I keep you well, I believe I'm doing my bit. And we can all do this in our little ways. Every little bit counts. So getting help. Well, a start point is our awareness. Do we know we're going through stress and difficulties? And when our close confiding friend says, you know, I'm getting a bit worried about you. You know, you've got rings around your eyes, you're not sleeping well, you've become a bit more grumpy recently. What are we doing about it? Overcoming stigma, reminding ourselves none of us enjoys 100% mental health. So all of us are somewhere off 100. Do we have close confiding relationships? Just someone we can trust to be vulnerable with? Are we aware of community resources? Do we have community mental health resource directories and understanding where people can get information? Access to family doctor and specialist referral? I'll share a really short anecdote. Sometime during summer, I was going on one of my many bushwalks, and I was at the edge of water somewhere, and there was this man just sitting there staring into the water. He looked crestfallen and broken. I just said hi. He said hi back. We ended up chatting for 2 hours. He was a veteran with very severe PTSD. He left home with his young daughter and wife because he was going through flashbacks and he didn't want his daughter to see him so distressed. He was aware that when he had flashbacks of PTSD, it would cause domestic difficulties. He would get rather angry with his wife. The little daughter would see this and ask Daddy, what's the matter? And so on. So he had come for a few quiet moments by the lake just to be with some quiet. We spoke for 2 hours. There was a lot of man bonding and soul sharing. We never exchanged names, but something very special happened on the day. So self-care. Are we getting enough sleep? Says Dr. Ayonrinde to himself. Are we getting enough exercise? And exercise in only a gym, says Dr. Ayonrinde to himself. Are we drinking a bit too much alcohol to manage our sleep and deal with our stress and anxiety? That's not Dr. Ayonrinde to himself. Or are we using substances, drugs? Cannabis is legal. Are we using much more than we normally would during work time, or experimenting with other substances? Do we have any concept of me time? Just time to be quiet and be in our own headspace. And mindfulness. Now we hear mindfulness over and over, and today's not a day for super mindfulness guru work, but I thought I'll just go through a really simple exercise and all teens to reflect on. So why don't we individually just reflect on this mindfulness grounding exercise? It's not difficult to remember because it's just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when you're feeling anxious, can you pause and settle your mind by naming, for instance, 5 things you can see. 4 things you can hear. 3 things you can touch. 2 things you can smell. And 1 thing you can taste. Now it's interesting because with that really simple exercise, just 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, I would hope many of you found yourself in a different place to just be listening to me talking, or day-to-day worries. And the fun thing about this and mindfulness sometimes also is this can be done with the kids. So here you are at home and with the children or members of the household, why don't we just play a game? And a situation that's been rather aroused and volatile or with some distress may settle a bit. You might consider this when you're going on your walk. 5 things you can see. A bird or type of bird. You're noticing something different with the snow, etc. Things you can hear. And when did we last pay attention to birdsong and reflect, what sort of bird is that? Things you can touch. Have you ever taken time to actually get a sense of what the texture of your sofa is like? Or the texture of some of your clothes or other surfaces? Have you ever given thought to just feeling what it feels like to feel rice? And smell. Well, hopefully the good type. And taste. And sometimes we're so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, just the go, 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 that these grounding experiences that support our wellness, that reduce our anxiety, that just get us into places of relaxation and peace, they pass us by. Oh, we're too busy. No, we're not. So I've given an overview, and what I thought was for the next bit, we really get into a world of question and answer. And what I'll be encouraging is to ask a question on anything related to mental health, mental wellness, mental well-being, or specific mental disorders for me to explain. I'll try and keep it as authentic as possible. And if it needs further information, I've got some details here as well. But thank you very much. I'll stop sharing and welcome your questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that incredible presentation. Just so everyone is aware of how they can go about asking a question, you can easily enter it into the Q&A section, or if you want to use the raise your hand function, we can call on you in order and you can ask it aloud. And then I should also mention, if there's anyone that has a question that they'd prefer to ask in a private format that's not recorded, you're more than welcome to send myself an email and I will pass it along, or you can use the contact information that was on the screen. I'm just going to check through our Q&A here. And see if we have any hands up. Perfect. Amanda, please go ahead.
I think Amanda's on mute.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Zoom, 3 years in. I really appreciated hearing you speak this morning about the size of Kingston and what that does for us as a community. And, you mentioned some of the struggles people have around homelessness, especially in this freezing cold. And it occurred to me that they are indeed our neighbors, right? Because Kingston is such a small community. And I know that my mental health is bolstered by supporting my neighbors. So I'm just wondering if you can give any advice or ideas to chamber members as to how we can help people who are experiencing homelessness right now.
Thanks, Amanda. That's a great question. And it's a cause very close to my heart, and for 2 reasons. Spending time in that community as a volunteer is priceless. I was in one of the homeless service providers on Thanksgiving overnight, and I learned a lot. And I also had my Christmas lunch with a homeless community. And I would say every little bit counts. They are our neighbors. The homeless population went to St. Lawrence College, graduated from Queens. Our veterans that were, enlisted to lay down their lives for us. The homeless are our neighbors. Some of us went to school with us. Many of them went to school in Kingston. They went to your high school. Some of them have commerce degrees. One of my close friends in that homeless population was an executive of an international corporation. And he's probably the only person I'm able to talk about 4 different countries intimately with: India, Australia, Nigeria, and Canada. And we happen to have lived in the same part of London, England. That's what the homeless population is. The homeless population are people with amazing skill, artists, amazing artists, people who've been at the peak of careers in their lives and come through hard times. So my call in response to your question, Amanda, is really in our corporate social responsibility, what are we doing? Every single bit counts. Are we providing wireless internet within homeless services and giving people just a chance to be able to use their device to let family members know they're alive, or to read up on news, or just check social media? Are we providing them or supporting them with meals? Housing's a big issue, and I could talk for hours on it, but really, if you can't afford a home or a roof over your head, it's tough. I showed you a picture earlier. 4 people lived there. That's a 4-person abode in Kingston in -31 degrees. They home or homeless. So every bit counts, and I would implore the chamber, and Amanda, maybe it's time to have, a homelessness index in Kingston amongst industry. What are we doing? And what is each organization doing to support our family members? It could be a discount on a phone bill. Bell, let's talk. Well, you can talk if you've got a phone line or something to use to talk. If any of them are like people I serve with severe mental illness, only 14% of my clients have video conferencing capability. 86% cannot use Zoom. They can't teleconference because they don't have the resource. Spending Christmas in one of the homeless shelters in the integrated care hub, I saw what a card from a little girl could do to a grown-up man. This was a Christmas card just saying how much we love you, although I don't know you, we love you, we care about you, and with a picture. And a $1 coin, a loonie, was sellotaped in. I saw a grown man hold that card to chest with tears streaming down the face. That's what community can do. Every bit counts because we're all connected. Thank you, Amanda.
Perfect. Very well said. And thank you for your question, Amanda. Next question we have is, can you talk about how prescription drugs are impacting mental health? Are people being prescribed medications unnecessarily, which ends up having a negative impact?
I hate to say, in many situations, yes, 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 and yes. And not all prescription drugs, but we are dealing with an opioid crisis. People die, and opioids kill. And a lot of people are dying opioid-related deaths. And yes, opioids have a role in the management of pain and pain type of disorders, but are they being monitored closely enough to ensure that people aren't on them for a long, long time? Are they discontinued? and so on. And a lot of people do become opioid dependents if they're prescribed long term. And so that it's no longer trying to manage the physical pain, but dependence kicks in. Now, why are opioids naughty? And same thing with benzodiazepines. And it's a word of caution to even people like me. We may prescribe the PAM, diazepam, clonazepam, temazepam, the PAMs, but these medications also have great addictive potential. Now, why is it a problem and how do they contribute to death? And I'll say, we don't have to think too far. You don't need to even be a psychopharmacologist. And I'm going to use examples that are very public. So, but if we think of it, prescription drugs, Elvis Presley, bang. Prescription drugs, Prince, bang. Prescription drugs, Michael Jackson, bang. Prescription drugs, Whitney Houston, bang. And what happens? How do they kill? Really, put it at a basic level, what these medications do is they sort of, opioids can switch off that bit of our brain. In our brains, I'm keeping it really simplistic, we've got something like an oxygen sats machine that just monitors oxygen levels. 90-something percent, 90-something percent, 98, 100, 90s. And then when the sats drop, we start breathing differently. And that's what happens when we may have sleep apnea. So we're sleeping, and then when the oxygen sats drop, we wake up because the alarm has sort of triggered, wake up, breathe. And then we fall asleep again. Now, what happens with opioids is they switch off that alarm. So when your oxygen saturation has dropped and dropped and dropped and is getting to danger level, they should go beep, 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 beep. It just switches off. Now, if you then add a benzodiazepine, the PAMs, or alcohol to that, not only does it have it switched off, but you're so knocked out with the medication with muscle relaxation that you can't even wake up if you tried. And that's how they kill. Opioids just switch off that alarm in our brain, that alarm mechanism in our brain that keeps us awake and alert to oxygen levels dropping. And that's why they kill. And that's how it causes death in anyone. And when it's then mixed, or we don't know what's in fentanyl and so on, death follows quickly. So prescription drugs sadly can, and it's very difficult in a pandemic because reviewing clients is not the same, and sometimes just changing medication during this period can really cause further distress and disrupt a stable situation. But my oh my, there's a heck of a lot of work ahead to do to try and clean this up. And unwittingly, some of us, as we prescribe, may be feeding the market.
Thank you for that, Deji. Perfect. We've got another question here. Thank you, Michelle. She's asked, how can we connect with our teens who prefer to hide in their rooms, to play video games, etc.? When asked how they are, they always answer with, I am fine.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I'll say the last 2 years have taken a huge toll on the mental health of young people. The mental health has just gotten worse, worse, worse. More depression, more anxiety, impaired sleep, cannabis use is going up, other drug use is going up. There's a heck of a lot of bullying going on social media. And I'd say our teens and young people, youth, are taking a huge hit from this period. What can we do? Well, some of the foundation lies in the sort of relation, just openness and frankness of communication with them. And I think if we've built up a home situation where to be a boy or a man is not show emotions, then it's a sign of weakness. And if you come on, you're be strong, you're a man. Now, I would argue that actually there's strength in vulnerability. There's, being a strong man is giving yourself permission to be vulnerable. And for our teens, well, both the boys and the girls, is allowing a culture where we can talk about vulnerable situations. So teens are the best at times, can give monosyllabic responses. Yeah, no, okay, well. And I would argue But adolescence is like a mental disorder, would have been for many of us. It's just a turbulent period of life. You know, the brains are hyper connected. There's a lot of neuronal activity and so on. So my suggestion will be encouraging vulnerable communication and perhaps modeling it oneself. So, you know, I'm not feeling great, Deji. You know, my sleep's not as good as it used to be. I've been worrying a fair bit about work, but I'm sure I'll be okay. We're working at it. It's stressful. How are you? And enabling and facilitating that sort of conversation. But if you think you've got parental rights to the mind of a teen, no way. I mean, why should they tell you? And in a hyper-connected world, they're gaming with someone in Japan. There's always someone awake, gaming, or doing stuff online, social media, anywhere in the world, all the time. So I'd say build a culture of vulnerable, safe communication, a bit more tolerance through this period. It's a long time to go through this, just being cooped up at home, recognizing that the teen isn't isolated into being a teen, but part of a family and a household. And there may be things, you know, mom and dad are rowing, the teen's here and he's had or she's had enough of it. And it's in their room because that's the place to be. You know, the irritating baby brother or sisters just damaged what they've been working on for ages and they feel like strangling and so on. But I'll say modeling the behavior and encouraging, just facilitating vulnerable talk. Dining tables can be quite good, well, if they join you at the dining table, but times one where you're not staring at each other and you get some pretty nifty conversations while driving, you know, so you're not staring at each other and the chat goes that way.
Those are some great suggestions. Thank you. And thank you, Michelle, again for your question.
Thank you.
I'm doing a final call here. I think we're just about out of time. If there's any last questions, and just to reiterate again, if you do have a question that comes to you afterwards or you prefer to do it privately, you can always send us an email after the fact. Perfect. Well, it looks like that is all the questions we have for today. So thank you so much to everyone who attended our mental health discussion. Please don't forget that on Bell Let's Talk Day, we all have an opportunity to make our voices heard. Join the conversation tomorrow, January 26th. I'd once again like to thank our presenting sponsor, Bell Let's Talk, and today's speaker, Deji, for making today possible, for all the effort that you both put into this presentation. We greatly appreciate it. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great afternoon or morning.
Thank you so much. And thanks to the unknown donors of these amazing hearts. We had boxers turn up at work and my, oh my, they've had a good squeeze. And I'd like to thank Kingston for just being an amazing community. The community spirit here is its strength. And for industry, big and small, every bit counts. There's so much kindness and resilience, and thanks for community. And community mental health needs you. We're all family. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.